Good morning, everyone, again. Just a little word of caution this morning. I am one who is plagued by headaches. They get pretty severe, usually on Sunday mornings. I finally figured out the correlation. When I get home from work on Saturday, first thing I do is go to my office and I spend the rest of the day finalizing my Sunday school lesson. So I think the hunching over the laptop and all that, I always have one when I wake up on Sunday morning. I got this medication I take, but sometimes it makes me feel a little loopy. So if I join those who usually fall asleep during Sunday school this morning, we're in good company. I did hear somebody once say if you took all the people who fall asleep during Sunday morning services and laid them out end to end in all the pews and all the churches, they'd be a lot more comfortable. So we are going to, today we're going to get to Antiochus IV. Antiochus Epiphanes, which means Antiochus the Illustrious or Antiochus the Manifest. He is the Old Testament foreshadowing of Antichrist. But before we go there, I want to just do a brief recap of where we were last week, briefly touch some high points, and set the stage here again. We are again in Daniel 11, and I still find this study is extraordinarily fascinating to me. It lays out a real clear prophetic roadmap of what's happening in that period of time between the close of the Old Testament and the advent of Christ, and we're matching up the prophecies of Daniel with known historical fact and showing that the prophecies are in fact true, and therefore the entire Scripture is true and trustworthy and reliable. So last week we spent some time here looking at Daniel 11, 10 through 19. Our primary protagonists to begin with were Antiochus III, also known as Antiochus the Great, and Ptolemy IV. They did battle repeatedly. When Antiochus ascended the throne, his first effort was to make his clicker not work. Again, as it always. Try it again. Let's see what we do here. There we go. Finally. So, Antiochus immediately begins efforts to conquer Egypt. Antiochus was defeated by Ptolemy IV and retreated back into his realm. He then turned his attentions eastward and expanded his empire and expanded the resource of manpower he could draw upon, and having done so, he rebuilt his army again and makes another effort to take Egypt. At the same time, about this time as we looked at last week, Rome had conquered Carthage and had gained control of almost all of the western Mediterranean. They had defeated the Carthaginian general Hannibal. Hannibal was the one who crossed the Alps with his elephants and his army and took the battle straight into the plains and valleys of Italy himself. In fact, he inflicted 3 major disastrous defeats on Rome. Now, one of the things I find interesting as I'm looking at Rome and you compare it against the prophecies of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar's image, it describes or ascribes medals to the various types of empires that are going to come, and for Rome, the medal that represents Rome is iron, which represents strength. Now, if we look at these other empires, Nebuchadnezzar's empire, the Persian Empire, it didn't take much to bring those down. Alexander conquered the Persian Empire really after 4 major battles. Persia conquered Nebuchadnezzar with maybe 2 or 3 major battles, and that empire came to an end. But Rome has a knack. Rome takes just one defeat after another. They get slaughtered constantly, but yet they always bounce back, and they keep coming back. A General Pyrrhus, he was a guy who, the phrase, the Pyrrhic victory, it comes after. He fought the Romans, and he won a battle, but the battle was so costly, he said, if I win any more battles like this, I'm going to be undone. So a Pyrrhic victory is a victory where you win, but you barely win by the skin of your teeth. It almost destroys you in the process. He described Rome as like a hydra. You cut off one head, and 2 heads grow back in its place. And so Rome's strength is in its resilience. They will lose just thousands of men on a battlefield. In the wars with Carthage, they are estimated to have lost as many as 200,000 men in their various battles. But Rome always bounces back, and when she bounces back, she's stronger than ever before. So Rome has great strength. I have found a doctoral dissertation on the internet that I'm going through right now. This guy tries to lay out what it is about Rome that allows it to survive all these defeats and still maintain its integrity as an empire. I haven't finished it yet, but it's a very interesting read so far, the strength of this empire. Rome has enough strength now where she can meddle and she can dictate to both Egypt and Syria and interfere in their affairs. Hannibal, after he's defeated by the Romans, he flees to Syria and he's given refuge by Antiochus III, and he's always goading Antiochus, go back and get the Romans, go back and get the Romans. Antiochus learns that Ptolemy IV has died, and he is succeeded by Ptolemy the Fifth. Ptolemy V is a child when he ascends to the throne. He's somewhere between, the historians disagree as to his exact age, but he's somewhere between 4 and 6 years of age. So he's not really governing per se, but regents are governing on his behalf. And Antiochus III thinks, now I've got an opportunity. I got this little boy on the throne. I'm going to attack Egypt again and try to make it part of my empire. And before he does so, in accordance with prophecy in Daniel, he enters into an alliance with Philip V of Macedon, and he does succeed in subduing much of Egypt and adding it to his empire. And then at this time, Israel comes under the dominion of the Seleucid Empire, so he's under the dominion of Antiochus III. Antiochus III's attitude towards Israel at this time is relatively benevolent. He allows them to maintain their way of life, to observe their own laws and their customs, as long as they pay their taxes and their tributes and they maintain the peace. They're allowed to basically live their life as they like. Now, before Antiochus makes a second effort to take on the Egyptian Empire, he fears the rise of the Roman Empire, and what he tries to do is to secure his left flank or secure Egypt by entering into an alliance with Ptolemy V and offers him his daughter for marriage. By the time Ptolemy V and Antiochus' daughter, who was like Cleopatra the first or the second, I don't remember exactly which one it was, when they get married, they're only like 13 or 14 years of age. But Scripture tells us that the prophecy is that in doing this, Antiochus hopes that his daughter will subvert the Egyptian kingdom and bring the kingdom into his control, but she remains loyal to her husband, not to her father. So this does not occur as he had wanted, but he still believes he has secured his left flank anyways, so now he feels strong enough to take on the Roman Empire. And he goes into Asia Minor and Greece and takes some of the Grecian islands, and he comes into direct conflict with Rome. He is defeated by the Romans, and he's required to relinquish control of all of Asia Minor and to evacuate Greece and her islands. And Rome, as part of the peace agreement, exacts a very heavy taxation on Antiochus. They basically say, you started this war, now you're going to pay for it. And so in order to ensure that the taxes are paid, Rome takes hostages as surety. And these hostages are not, they're not Joe the plumber and they're not, Bob the potter, but these hostages are members of the royal family. They're very important people to ensure that the taxes are paid. One of these hostages is Antiochus the Fourth, who was taken as surety for payment. As a result of this conquest, Rome now has control of central Mediterranean, Greece, the islands, Cyprus, and they're poised now to move in and take Palestine and Egypt and Syria and the rest of the Hellenistic empire. Antiochus III has a rebellion, and he's murdered in the temple of Baal while trying to steal the tribute money that's owed to Rome. He's trying to take that money and make off with it himself, and he's killed in the process. And as we looked at last week, the prophecy of Daniel said that he would return to his land, he would stumble and fall and not be found. So that prophecy comes true. And then, unbeknownst to the Seleucid emperors, Ptolemy V, in order to secure his position after Antiochus III dies, he enters into an alliance treaty with Rome. And this will come back to bite Antiochus IV at a later time. So if attacked, Rome promised to go to war on behalf of Egypt. When Antiochus IV, or the third, is killed, he is succeeded by Seleucus IV. He's prophesied in Daniel as being one who would raise taxes. He would also be destroyed, but not in anger. And Seleucus IV was assassinated by one of his ministers, and then that minister was then deposed by Antiochus IV. Let's see. During his reign, Seleucus IV sought to strictly keep the peace treaty with Rome. He didn't want trouble with Rome. Rome now has, it's a mighty empire now. It has a lot of strength and has a lot of influence, and you don't want to go to war with Rome without having a good reason to do so. He set about raising taxes to pay Rome's tribute, and then it's believed that he tried to plunder the temple treasury in Jerusalem, also to pay this tax to Rome. And he eventually is assassinated by his minister Heliodorus. And then he is succeeded by his brother Antiochus IV. So that's where we're going to talk now. Antiochus IV is the Old Testament foreshadow of Antichrist. So that's where we're going to spend some time here today. We see in Daniel 8, let's go back again. We'll go back to Daniel 8 again, in 8 to 14. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and it came up, and for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven, and out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land. This is referring to Antiochus IV. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And a host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. And then in Daniel 11:21 is where we begin to see him again. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. This again is referring to Antiochus IV. He is the only one in history who meets this prophecy. And with the arms of flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken, yea, also the prince of the covenant. And after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people. He shall enter peaceably upon the fattest places of the province, and he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey, and spoil and riches, yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. Yea, they shall feed the portion. Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for the yet shall be at the time appointed. Then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant. He shall do exploits and return to his own land. At the appointed time he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter. For the ships of Shittim shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. And arms shall stand in his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and they shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. And we'll stop there for now. So this is Antiochus IV. Scripture tells us he's a vile man. Let's see here. And just different translations of Daniel 11:21 I thought were interesting to give us an idea. In Daniel 11:21 it says, "And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries." The NIV, "He shall be succeeded by a contemptible person who has not been given the honor of royalty. He will invade the kingdom when his people feel secure, and he will seize it through intrigue." In the American Standard Version, "And in his place shall stand up a contemptible person, to whom they had not given the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in a time of security and shall obtain the kingdom by flatteries." So, when Antiochus IV seizes the throne, he is not the rightful heir to the throne. He is the brother of Seleucus. I can't get these numbers straight. I think it was the fourth. So he's his brother. The rightful heir is Demetrius I. Demetrius I is also held as a hostage in Rome to ensure payment of the taxes. So both Antiochus IV and Demetrius were held as hostage for a period of time. And Seleucus offered his son Demetrius I in exchange for Antiochus IV's freedom. I don't know why he would do such a thing, but he did. So with the help of Pergamum, Antiochus IV seized the throne for himself, proclaiming himself to be co-regent of one of Seleucus's other sons, also named Antiochus. There were so many Antiochuses in the story, it's hard to keep them all straight. And Antiochus IV then murdered the other Antiochus, his nephew, and seized the throne for himself. So he is a vile person. Now, I found several extra-biblical references to Antiochus IV, and they all describe Antiochus as being vile from the time before he seized the kingdom. He was already reputed by his peers and those who knew him as being a vile individual. He engaged in activity considered to be beneath the dignity of a person of a royal family. Polybius says he was every man's companion. He resorted to the common shops and prattled with the workmen. He frequented the common taverns and ate and drank with the meanest fellows, singing debauched songs. There's also a story where he would carry a bag of stones under his cloak, and if he thought anybody was following him, he'd turn around and throw stones at him to keep him from following him. Sort of a paranoid individual, I think. And then just a sort of a compilation of other descriptions from other sources. They said he often lounged like a mere idler. He was not ashamed to be in the dissipated circles of the young, to drink and carouse with them. He often appeared in the common bathhouses where he engaged in every kind of foolish jest. He's not infrequently he was seen drunk in the streets. And then in Gill's exposition of the Bible, he's described, he's also drawing on some extra biblical sources. He describes him as a very, very immoral man, given to drunkenness, lasciviousness, uncleanness, and unnatural lust. By his freaks and frolics, he made himself very ridiculous. So he's already, he fits the biblical description of a vile person. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom. So, the kingdom was not conferred on Antiochus by law or any act of the nation. Neither was he chosen or called or crowned by his family or the people. He came in under guise. He came in claiming to represent the best interests of the kingdom. He was going to secure the kingdom until Demetrius I could be freed from Rome, and then he would surrender the kingdom to him, or he would give the kingdom to the other son, who was still a minor at this time. So the people believe he has the kingdom's best interests at heart. He becomes king not through the regular chain of succession. Like I said, the true heir to the crown was still a hostage in Rome. He shall come in peaceably. He came in quietly without war or force. He came in through guile and deceit. He had a hidden agenda. He came in when the nation was not expecting. They were off their guard. They weren't expecting anyone to attempt to take the throne from the rightful heir. And he had pretended to have the best interests of the kingdom at heart. He came in. Remember, Heliodorus, he had assassinated Seleucus I and had temporarily installed himself as the emperor, the king, and he was regarded as a usurper. He took this man out, he killed him, and then he made the claim that he was going to secure the kingdom until the rightful heir could take his position. So no one seemed to have suspected he intended to take the throne for himself. Then also it says that he would obtain the kingdom by flatteries. I tried to look up various definitions for flattery. Some of them give such definitions as slipperiness, flattering, deceit of the tongue, dissimulation. So he would obtain the kingdom with smooth talk, promises of rewards, and offices to those who supported him. He was able to convince other surrounding kings to support his claim on the throne. Now, have you ever met anybody like this, who was a fast talker, he was a flatterer, he was slippery. I worked with a guy one time. In my line of work, you got to kind of be fast on your feet when you're talking to people and read them and all that. But this guy, I think, could have talked his way out of being executed as he was being tied on a board and slid through the guillotine to have his head chopped off. I had this guy I worked with. I wanted to get rid of him because he was doing a lot of damage to the company. And I'd finally gotten the goods on him. I found out he had been misusing the company gas credit card. He had racked up hundreds of dollars on the company cell phone. He had separated from his wife at the time, but he had a girlfriend, and I had assigned him a case once where I said, you need to go up north to Grayling or Roscommon, wherever it was. But I looked him in the eye and I said, you go by yourself. Don't take your girlfriend with you. Well, I found out that he did take her. He did take her with him. And then I also found out he had been fabricating reports and lying, and he'd been making things up. Part of the thing we would do when we do before we do surveillance on somebody, we do what we call an activity investigation, where part of which entailed knocking on doors and talking to neighbors. What have you seen this person doing? All that sort of thing. Well, we found out that he had not been knocking on the doors like he should have been. He had a cross-reference directory at his house. He would sit at his kitchen table and he would just make up stuff. He would pretend he'd talk to these people and just make up all these interviews that never occurred. And we discovered all of this, and I thought, I got this guy. I've got him. We can get rid of him now. Went into my boss, and I laid out all the evidence to him. They brought him in. I couldn't believe the way this guy weaseled out of this. He was able to, he said he had a brain disease. It made him make bad decisions. And he wasn't responsible for anything, and my stupid boss bought it and allowed him to stay for another 6 months or so before we finally got rid of him. But somebody who taught, he's able to, he's just a slippery guy. He can just talk his way out of anything, really. And they're kind of difficult to deal with. He came in with pretensions of clemency and humanity, pretends he's going to be nice to everybody. He wants the throne, so he's willing to make concessions to get it. He has promises of friendship. Everybody wants to be friends with the king, so he uses that to his advantage. He enlisted aid and support of other kings by promises of assistance against the Romans. One of his battle cries was that he was going to free Greece from the oppression of the Romans at some point. Now, his true character was belied by his murder of the other Antiochus, who he claimed to be safeguarding for the throne. He murders him, and he claims the throne for himself. And he's taken the throne while Demetrius I is still a hostage in Rome. So, the fulfilled prophecies here, Daniel 11:21, the next king of the Seleucid dynasty would be a vile man. And Antiochus I fits the bill perfectly. He's a vile individual. And his vileness would be increased and magnified when he turns and vents his rage on Jerusalem a little bit later. He would gain a throne to which he was not entitled, and he would gain a throne through flattery and intrigue. Now we are at about, I think we're about probably around 175 to 165 BC. So we're about a century and 3/4 away from the coming of Christ at this point. So with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken, yea, also the prince of the covenant. Daniel 11:22. So the next king in Egypt is Ptolemy VI, and he ascends the throne at the age of about 6 in 180 BC. So he also is, the country is really being ruled by regents claiming to operate on his behalf. These regents advised Ptolemy VI to avenge the earlier defeat of Ptolemy V at the hands of Antiochus and to retake the Palestine area. Antiochus learns of the planned invasion, and he attacks first through Israel on his way to Egypt. Now, Israel comes into play here while preparing for his invasion of Egypt. Antiochus, there's a dispute going on in Jerusalem between who was to be the high priest. The original high priest is a guy named Onias III. He's regarded as having been a rightful priest. He was said to have been a godly man, but his brother, and he was, what do I want to say? He was zealous about the law and maintaining the ways of the scriptures. But his brother was a Hellenizer, and his name was originally Joshua, but he changed his name to the Greek name of Jason. He wanted to be priest, and he did so. And so there was a dispute that arose over who should be priest, and Antiochus III, on his way to Egypt, tries to settle this dispute. Onias was a pro-Ptolemaic king. Jason was pro-Seleucid. Onias was removed, and Jason was installed as the priest in 174. After paying a larger amount for the position, he promised the wholehearted support of Antiochus' Hellenization plans, and even promised to pay more money if he would be given license to build a Greek-style gymnasium in Jerusalem. So at this point now, the priesthood, the high priesthood in Jerusalem, is now something that can be bought and sold. Whoever has the highest, can pay the most amount of money will get the position, and it becomes less of a religious function as it is a political function. Antiochus III and his descendants now would believe that the high priest position is a position that could be changed and appointed at their will. And for the most part, the priests that follow are not in the Aaronic line. They are really, according to Scripture, not to have been the priests. So the priesthood is polluted. Antiochus IV invades Egypt, defeats Ptolemy VI, and proclaims himself as king of Egypt. Rather than following up, I don't know why, but these Hellenistic kings, they don't seem to go after the king to kill him to take the empire. I rarely see this happening. After he wins his early victories, he enters into a peace agreement with Ptolemy VI and leaves him as king of Alexandria. He also sets up another king, Ptolemy VIII, as king of Memphis. And what his hope is that the rivalry between these two will keep Egypt paralyzed so that they will not take action against him. And so he goes back into his kingdom. Then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant, and he shall do exploits and return to his own land. So, to update our timeline, Antiochus V comes to the throne in 175. Onias III is removed as priest, replaced by Jason. Jason is he is really no better than Antiochus IV. He eventually arranges for Onias to be murdered. Antiochus IV invades Egypt. He leaves Ptolemy VI and Ptolemy VIII as kings. And then, as he's going back to his kingdom, he learns of a rebellion in Jerusalem over who was going to be the high priest. And he has to stop and put down this rebellion. So after Antiochus IV leaves, Ptolemy the Sixth and Ptolemy the Eighth, they unite and make an agreement to try to take on Antiochus IV again. So Antiochus comes back into Egypt again a second time. He brings in an army larger than before, and his goal is to take Egypt again. And the Scripture says, at the time appointed he shall return. So he returns to Egypt. Thing is, Antiochus IV does not know that an alliance had been entered into between Ptolemy V and the Roman Empire earlier. He does not know this, so he's in for a surprise. The Scripture tells us, for the ships of Shittim shall come against him. Shittim usually means, that refers to Cyprus and the isles around Greece, which at this time were under the control of Rome, and Rome had a fleet of ships in Cyprus. The Roman fleet has left from Cyprus, is now waiting in the harbor at Alexandria. The Roman emissary meets Antiochus and hands him an ultimatum from the Roman Senate. Cease your wars against Egypt and withdraw your armies. And the Scripture tells us, therefore, he shall be grieved and return. Now, when Antiochus meets this Roman emissary, he has tens of thousands of soldiers behind him. The Roman emissary has just a few behind him. But Antiochus, even though he's a vile person, he's smart enough to realize that behind this emissary is the power of the whole Roman Empire, so he does not kill him or take him. The Roman emissary tells Antiochus IV, I want your answer. Are you going to withdraw and leave Egypt? Antiochus asked for time to consider. And this emissary slowly draws a circle in the sand around him And he says, before you leave the circle, you're going to give me your answer. If you leave the circle without giving me your answer, we will take it as a declaration of war against Rome. So Antiochus IV stands there in humiliating silence for several minutes. And he finally says, all right, you can have Egypt. He decides to leave. This is where the phrase, to draw a line in the sand, it comes from this event. Now, we know from recent events that if you say you're going to draw a line in the sand and you don't follow it up with anything, it doesn't mean anything. But the Romans, they meant it. If they drew the line in the sand and you crossed the line, you were going to be at war with them, and your prospects of victory were pretty slim. So Antiochus IV leaves Egypt with his army, and the Bible tells us he would have indignation against the Holy Covenant. Freud refers to something called displacement, and that is where if you have a bad day at work and you come home, you can't take it out on your boss because he's got the power and authority over you. So you come home and you kick the cat, or you kick the dog, or you treat your family badly because you're angry over the way you've been treated at work. Well, this is the mindset of Antiochus. He's angry at the way the Romans have stopped his aspirations to conquer Egypt, and he decides he's going to vent his anger on the Jews. So, after his plans to conquer Egypt are thwarted by Rome, Antiochus IV returns to Jerusalem and vents his anger. He tries to eradicate Judaism. And I think that's where we're going to stop for this morning. Next week, we'll look at the specific things he did to try to stamp out Judaism. He's going to rigorously enforce Hellenism on the Jews, and he's going to have the help of a lot of traitors Jews that are going to help him try to convert Israel into a purely Hellenistic society. But there's a small minority of faithful Jews who are going to stand up against it and try to fight back. And so that's where we're going to pick it up next week. Are there any questions or comments so far? Again, this is all specifically filled prophecies from Daniel chapter 7, given to Daniel 250 or so years before these events actually occurred. So thank you for your time.